All right, we are 2-0 with a push in our last three NBA tier package picks on brockpage.com. And the link for that pick is in the description section below. We're also 4-0 with a push in our last five college basketball tier package picks on that very same webpage. $1,000 bettors are up over $3,600 during that span. And as always, all the plays that I give out on brockpage.com, they're my personal bets, games that I personally have action on. With that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to start with the Nets taking on the Nuggets, 3:30 Eastern start time on Sunday, February 6th, 2022. Denver's minus 6.5 with the total at 229. And as bad as Brooklyn's been lately, well, the Nuggets actually lost their last three straight themselves. And they really, they really haven't been all that good covering the point spread at home. Denver's covered the number in only 9 out of 23 contests at the Ball Arena. And that's good for only 39% in that particular category. Now, the Nuggets have had some issues at both ends of the court this year. Starting off defensively, they actually struggle guarding the field goal. And as a matter of fact, Denver's in the bottom three in defensive field goal percentage at home. Meanwhile, offensively on the other end of the court, Denver also finds themselves in the bottom five in offensive boards per game. Now they're taking on a Brooklyn team who still plays their best basketball on the road, despite their current skid. Now the Nets are 17-10 straight up when traveling, and they also lead the entire NBA in shooting the three ball on the road. Kyrie Irving scoring over 22.5 points a game, along with 8 boards and double-digit assists. Meanwhile, Patty Mills, he's drilling nearly 43% of his three-pointers. And he's also scoring 13 points a game. Patty, really, really dangerous from three-land this year. Now, the Nets are currently leading the league in offensive field goal percentage away from home. Meanwhile, defensively, they're actually limiting their competition to just 32% shooting from three-land when they travel. Now, injury-wise, Durant, Millsap, and Aldridge, they're all still out indefinitely. Meanwhile, Harden and Claxton, they're both listed as questionable for Brooklyn. Meanwhile, for Denver, on the other side of things, Murray and Cancer are both still out indefinitely. Rivers and Gordon are questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, Denver went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings. The Nuggets are also 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with Brooklyn. Meanwhile, the Nets on the other side of things, they saw overs recently with Phoenix, Minnesota, and this very Denver team. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Brooklyn, plus 6.5, and the over 229. Next matchup should be a good one. I'm talking about Philadelphia versus Chicago. That's going to be a 3:30 Eastern tip-off. The Philadelphia 76ers are -2 on the road, totals 220.5. Now, the Sixers did get the W in 5 out of their last 7, and they actually play their best basketball when traveling. Matter of fact, the Sixers allow only 106 points a game on the road. They currently find themselves in the top 10 in guarding the three ball away from home. Now, scoring-wise, Joel Embiid's averaging 29 points a game, along with double-digit rebounds. Meanwhile, Tyrese Maxey's drilling 40% of his three-pointers, and also scores 16 points a game himself. Now, the Sixers are currently in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage. They're taking on a Chicago team who may have to go to work here today without Zach LaVine and Kobe White. Both of those guys are currently battling injuries. And I'll tell you this much, although Chicago's having one heck of a year, they're having one heck of a year thus far, they've had their issues defensively. The Bulls are currently in the bottom 10 in defensive field goal percentage. And believe it or not, they're actually amongst the worst teams in the game in guarding the three ball at home. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings between these two squads, Chicago did lose 9 out of their last 10 matchups against Philadelphia. They're kind of snake-bitten when it comes to the Sixers. You know, you always have those teams that you can't beat. And it just seems like the Sixers are one of them for Chicago. Now, injury-wise, once again, LaVine and White are questionable. Ball, Caruso, and Jones, they are still out indefinitely. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, Korkmaz and Thibault, they're listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, Philadelphia saw overs recently with Memphis, New Orleans, and San Antonio. Meanwhile, Chicago saw their last 5 straight get over the line themselves, 60% to the over this year at the United Center. I'm going to lean toward Philadelphia -2 and the over 220.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Pistons versus the Timberwolves, 3:30 p.m. East. Minnesota's -11.5 at home, totals 230. Now Minnesota's on a 3-game winning streak, and they also got the W in 7 out of their last 10. Now the T-Wolves have played some really good defense at home this year. They're actually in the top 3 in defensive field goal percentage on their home court. And they're allowing just 105 points a night in the Target Center. Now, scoring-wise, Karl Anthony Towns, he's averaging over 24 points a game, along with 9 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards, he's scoring over 22 points a game himself, along with 5 rebounds and 3 assists as well. Minnesota is officially in the top 5 in the association in scoring on average per game. Now, they're taking on a Detroit team who lost their last 3 straight themselves, and they also got the W in only 2 out of their last 11. Now, the Pistons have been awful on the road this season. I don't know really how else to say it. They've been terrible when traveling. They're just 4-22 straight up when they travel, and they're averaging only 101 points a game in those contests. Now, Detroit's also currently dead last in the NBA in offensive rebounding. Now, defensively, on the other end of the court, the Pistons really have big problems in that particular area as well. They're actually dead last in guarding the 3 ball away from home, and they're letting their opponents make 49% of their field goals against them in that same category. Now, injury-wise, Jackson and Pickett are out. Cunningham is questionable. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, Wright is out. Okogie and Bolmaro are questionable. When it comes to the scoring in this matchup here, well, Minnesota's 14-11 to the under in the Target Center. Meanwhile, Detroit on the other side, they saw unders recently with Boston, New Orleans, and Denver. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota -11.5, under 230. Next matchup, it is going to be Atlanta versus Dallas, 6 p.m. Eastern tip-off. The Dallas Mavericks are -2 at home, totals 221 and a hook. And despite the absence of Brown and Porzingis, the Mavs still play their best basketball at home, and they're giving up only 102 points a game in the American Airlines Center. These guys have been very tough defensively in front of their home fans. Now, Luka Doncic, scoring-wise, he's averaging over 26 points a game, along with 8 boards and 9 assists. Meanwhile, Jalen Brunson, he's averaging over 15.5 points a game himself, along with 3 boards and 5.5 assists as well. Now, they're taking on an Atlanta club who lost 2 out of their last 3, and they covered the number in only 36% of their road games. Now, the Hawks have had a tough time defensively away from their home court. They're giving up 113 points a game in their travels, and they're also having a tough time guarding the field goal in that same category. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Williams, Gallinari, and Collins are questionable. Meanwhile, for Dallas, once again, Brown and Porzingis are out. Maxi Kleber, he's listed as questionable as well. When it comes to the total in this one, Dallas is 21-6 to the under this year in front of their home crowd. They also went 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with the Hawks. Meanwhile, Atlanta on the other side of things, they're actually 4-3 to the under in their last 7 outings themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Dallas Mavericks -2 in the under 221.5. All right, next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Pacers versus the Cavaliers. And that's going to be a 6 o'clock Eastern start time. Cleveland's -5.5 at home, totals 216. And despite the potential absence of Darius Garland here today, we're still looking at a Cleveland team who won 7 out of their last 10. And they play some pretty darn good defense. As a matter of fact, the Cavaliers currently lead the NBA in fewest points allowed per contest. They're also in the top 5 in defending the 3 ball. Now, scoring-wise, when it comes to offensive production, Jared Allen, he's scoring over 16 points a game along with 11 rebounds. Meanwhile, Kevin Love is knocking down 40% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 14.5 points a game. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they currently find themselves in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage as well. They're taking on an Indy team who lost 6 out of their last 8. And they're actually winning only 23% of their road games this year. Now, the Pacers are averaging only 106 points per contest in their travels, and they do find themselves in the bottom 10 in shooting from the field away from home. Now, injury-wise, Sabonis and Brogdon are questionable. Jackson is out. Meanwhile, for Cleveland on the other side of things, once again, Darius Garland is questionable. Lauri Markkanen, he is still out indefinitely. When it comes to the number in this one, Cleveland's 18-7 to the under at home this year, 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Indy. Meanwhile, the Pacers are 15-11 to the under away from their home court themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland, -5.5, and the under 216. All right, next ball game I have for you. It is going to be Celtics versus the Magic, 6 p.m. Eastern tip-off. Boston is -9, totals 214.5. Now, the Celtics are on a 4-game winning streak. They've done a real nice job on the defensive end of the court this year. As a matter of fact, the Celtics lead the NBA in defensive field goal percentage on the road. They're also allowing only 104 points per contest. Now, scoring-wise, Jason Tatum's averaging 25 points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Jaylen Brown, he's scoring over 23.5 points per contest himself, along with 6 rebounds and 3 assists as well. And speaking of offensive production, the Celtics are currently in the top 3 in the NBA in road offensive boards. Now they're taking on an Orlando Magic squad who's in the second of a back-to-back here today, so you could be, looking at fatigue problems. And they're also winning just 20% of their home games, so even if they're well-rested in the second of a back-to-back, they're just not good at home. Once again, they're averaging only 102 points per contest in the Amway Center this year. Now, they're making just 31% of their three-pointers in that very building. Meanwhile, defensively on the other end of the court, Orlando's currently dead last in the NBA in guarding the 3-ball at home. Now, injury-wise, Moore, Carter Williams, and Hampton, they're still out indefinitely. Mo Bamba is questionable. And when it comes to the total in this one, Orlando saw their last 6 straight get over the posted number. They also went 8-1 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, Boston saw overs recently with Miami and Portland. I'm leaning toward the Boston Celtics -9 in the over 214.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Pelicans versus the Rockets, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. New Orleans is -5 away from home, totals 228.5. But despite being the 5-point favorite on the road here, the Pelicans play their worst basketball away from home. They've gotten the W in just 9 out of 28 road games this year, and that's good for just 32% in that category. Now, New Orleans has also done a really bad job of scoring in their travels. The Pels are actually averaging only 102 points a game away from their home court, and they're making just 32% of their three-pointers in that very same category. So certainly some problem areas for the Pelicans. To lay 5 points in the spot here, it's a little bit dicey in my opinion. They are taking on a Rockets team who covered the number against the likes of Cleveland, Golden State, and Utah here recently. Now, the Rockets actually do the majority of their scoring late in games. They're currently in the top 10 in third quarter scoring at home. And they're also in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring at any location. So really, it doesn't matter kind of how this game starts. You're kind of always alive and, in the running for a backdoor cover when it comes to Houston. Because like I said, they score all their points late. And speaking of points, Christian Wood, he's the team's leading points getter. He's averaging over 17.5 points per contest, along with double-digit rebounds. Meanwhile, Eric Gordon, he's making nearly 43% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging 14 points a game. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings here, the Rockets got the W in 6 out of their last 10 contests, against New Orleans. So head-to-head meetings, certainly think about that one there. Now, injury-wise, Garuba is out. Meanwhile, for the Pels on the other side, Temple, Hernangomez, and Silva, they are out. Not going to see them in action. Hart is questionable as well. Now, total-wise, the Pels saw their last 5 straight fall under the line, 80% to the under in their last 10. Meanwhile, Houston saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the posted number themselves. I'm going to lean toward Houston plus 5 and the under 228.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final free pick for the video. It is going to be Bucks versus the Clippers, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Milwaukee's -4 with the total at 227.5. Now, the Bucks got the W in 6 out of their last 8 ball games, and they've scored a bunch of points on the road this year. Milwaukee's scoring nearly 113 points a game when they travel. They also find themselves in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's averaging over 28.5 points a game, along with 11 rebounds and 6 assists. Meanwhile, Chris Middleton, he's scoring 19.5 points a game himself, along with 5 rebounds and 5 assists as well. What am I talking about here? I lost my... I just talked about Middleton. Anyway, speaking of offensive production, the Bucks find themselves in the top 3 in offensive boards per game. They're taking on a Clipper team who's covering in just 42% of their home games this year, and they're actually amongst the worst rebounding teams in the West. LA finds themselves in the bottom 10 in offensive rebounding per contest. They're also in the bottom 3 in defensive boards per game as well. When it comes to the injury report in this one, Scrub is out. Zubac is questionable. Meanwhile, for Milwaukee, George Hill is still questionable with a neck injury. And when it comes to the total in this one, Milwaukee saw unders recently with Washington, Cleveland, and Chicago. Meanwhile, Los Angeles saw unders recently with Charlotte, Orlando, and Philadelphia. I'm going to lean toward Milwaukee -4 and the under 227.5. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 2-0 with a push in our last 3 NBA tier package picks. I like Brooklyn plus 6.5 over 229. Philadelphia -2 over 220.5. Minnesota -11.5 under 230. Dallas -2 under 221 and a hook. Cleveland -5.5 under 216. Boston Celtics -9 over 214.5. Houston +5 under 228 and a hook. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are also 4-0 with a push in our last 5 college basketball tier package picks on brockpage.com. I'm going to lean toward Milwaukee -4 and the under 227.5. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on my website, you're going to get access to those picks all the way through the end of February. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website, you're going to want to think about signing up for my board member package, where not only are you going to get access to the board member tier pick itself, you actually get access to every single package that I offer on that website. It's an all-inclusive membership. You're looking anywhere between 5 to 6 premium personal bets that you'll get access to every single day through the end of February. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Sunday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.